All right, guys, so today I am going to be doing a small little comparison. Well, it may not be quite so small, but what I want to talk about is this Dewalt FLEXVOLT TRACKSAW versus the Festool. This is the TS55 KEB TRACKSAW. So these are pretty much in the same genre, or they're basically in the same family as far as track saws are concerned. So let me kind of position this in a way that I want to position it. All right, so just getting right into it. This one has a 2 1/8 inch cut, I believe, on the rail, and this one has a 2 1/8 inch cut off the rail, which signifies that the blade on the Festool is just a little bit smaller than the blade on the Dewalt, which is a I believe a 6.5 inch blade. This blade is going to be similar, I believe, to what's on the Milwaukee. So if you're looking for a little bit more cut capacity, then the Dewalt's going to be the saw for you. Now, when you take a look at both of these saws, my personal experience, obviously I bought both of these with my own money. I do prefer the actual the depth selection on the Festool by comparison to the Dewalt, which is basically you just unscrew this knob and move it up and down. As far as the beveling feature, you can see the difference in the knobs. This one's a nice large knob, and this is, you know, this knob is fine, but you know, you've got that. Now, when you take a look at these saws, right, the Festool actually has the conventional, or what I would call the conventional plunge mechanism, where you just kind of, you push in and the saw will depress into your work just by pushing it forward. Whereas when you're talking about the Dewalt, it actually has a mechanism where it actually shifts forward. Still a parallel plunge, but the mechanism is definitely unique by comparison to the Festool. I don't think one is necessarily better than the other one. They're just different. Now, the Dewalt is the first saw that I actually started out with. And I've mentioned in my videos before, I started out with this one because I wanted to get into the track saw game. However, I already, Dewalt seemed like it was a little bit more accessible to me, both financially and, you know, it had a larger platform of tools. So that's why I went with this one. And, you know, later through, you know, growth and change, I, you know, obviously moved up to the Festool. Now, today, if I had to choose, you know, I'm just going to cut it short. I would still choose the Festool over the Dewalt at this point in time. However, it's a different conversation now, because there's a possibility that I never would have went to the Festool if Dewalt had some of the things that are available for it now. Now, you can go to benchdogs.co.uk and you can find accessories such as an angle square for your tracks. You can also find parallel guides, which are recently released not too long ago from benchdogs.co.uk. And I believe TSO, which is another manufacturer of right angle squares for rails, I believe they now make a right angle square for the Dewalt as well. So that level of functionality and, you know, parallel guides and right angle squares was what I did not have on the Dewalt when I first purchased it. Now, when you start talking about power and cutting ability, you know, it's going to be kind of negligible. You can actually take a Festool blade and you could put it on the Dewalt. So that may help with some degree of cut quality if you have issues. Now, that's going to change the depth of cut because the blade on the Festool is smaller than the blade on the Dewalt. However, you cannot take a Dewalt blade and put it on the Festool. Now, the Dewalt is able to run. Now, this is the track saw, not the other type of saw that runs on a track that Dewalt makes that looks more like a regular circular saw. Just this Dewalt track saw, which comes corded and cordless, can run on the Festool rail with no problem. So keep that in mind. So if you really wanted to, you could actually get a Festool MFT and run this Dewalt saw on there if that was what you so chose to do. Now, when you start talking about tool to tool I do like the fast fix functionality to be able to change the blade where it locks in. All right, so both saws, so the Festool actually has a speed selector right here on the side here, and it goes from 1 all the way up to 6 as far as the speed. And then looking at the Dewalt, it actually has a speed control right here, and it actually goes from 1 to 7. All right, let's take a closer look at the rails. So here you have the Festool, the Dewalt rail. I have all 3 of them here. If you look up here, how tall the 102 inch is. Now, getting into these rails, right? One of my rails here, let me see which one it is. Okay, this rail right here, if you take a look at it, I've actually removed the splinter guard off of the side of it, and this is the rail that I actually use with my right angle square. So that's something to keep in mind. One of the unique features of the Dewalt TrackSaw is you can actually cut on both sides. You can have the saw go down one side and up the other if you so chose. However, when you add the accessories, it does require you to remove one of the cutting strips in order to be able to add those extra components, such as this benchdogs.co.uk rail square, which will actually affix onto the device underneath, and it connects with those yellow cams to be able to connect to the rail so that you can get a 90-degree cut. So if you're talking about parallel guides, if you're talking about rail squares, and then if you're talking about the ability to be able to to utilize the saw on a Festool MFT, then it's pretty much check, check, check. You can do whatever you want to do with the Dewalt that you can do with the Festool, or vice versa. Now, for me personally, the reason why I would go with the Festool over the Dewalt, so let's look at, let's talk about warranty. So both Festool and Dewalt products both come with a 3-year warranty. However, the Festool does come with theft protection. It comes with a 3-year all-inclusive warranty for everything to be covered. Dewalt tools come with a 3-year warranty, but they don't have like the all-inclusive and or the theft protection and all of that. So the warranty is going to be better with the Festool. Obviously, the Festool is going to be more pricey, and I'm thinking this saw comes around the $500–600 range, and this one's closer to $600–700 range. Now, the rails are cheaper on the Dewalt. However, you only have the 3 options. You have the 42 inch, the 55 inch, and then the 102 inch. Now, if you're thinking about cutting down longer sheets of plywood, like say a full 4x8 foot going the lengthways, then you're going to be, well, at least for, I say for convenience sake. Now, obviously you can attach 2 55-inch rails to get 110, but up here on top, I have a 118-inch Festool rail. Now, they used to make a 197-inch rail, which I don't see that in production anymore. But this 118-inch rail, which is very similar to the Makita rail, gives you the ability to cut a full 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of plywood in one pass going down the 8-foot length, giving you proper overhang on before the work and on the end of the work. So that's going to be a lot more convenient, and being that it's one actual track, you don't have to worry about any kind of alignment issues or whatever, because it's one track of aluminum. So I think that that's superior. I do think that now, of course, this could be just a little bit of me being biased towards the Festool at this particular time, but I like the way, the dust collection solution that is offered with the Festool, albeit it's all more pricey, but I can use my 48-liter Festool dust extractor with the Cyclone. I can use the Festool battery-powered MIDI. Festool has Bluetooth built into their batteries, whereas with the Dewalt, The battery powered option is actually, you have this little dongle that I have here attached to my Dewalt miter saw, and it will work with this FLEXVOLT vacuum. However, you know, and this is what I mean by like when you start talking about a system. Dewalt, you know, I actually made a cloth bag for this. Well, actually my wife helped me make one because you can't find any actual replacement bags for this particular vacuum. It's a pretty cool vacuum because it's fully battery powered. It's a HEPA vacuum. I did have to buy that stand separate to be able to attach it. It's a, what do you call this? This is a T-stack component, so you can stack things on top, very similar to the sustainer type of thing. And so I do think that that's a value feature. However, the fact that in order to use the wireless control, I do have to use a dongle as opposed to the wireless technology being built into the FLEXVOLT TRACKSAW. Whereas over here, you've got Bluetooth built into the vac for this one, and Bluetooth in the batteries for the TRACKSAW, so that's going to communicate. And then if you go over here to the actual CT48, you can buy this module right here, which means your vacuum, a larger vacuum, is upgradable to be able to run Bluetooth. And both of these vacuums have readily available bags, so you don't have to worry about either making your own or sticking a bag in here that's going to take away the already limited capacity that this vacuum has. This TRACKSAW, it kind of in a way kind of seems to be like, it's an excellent addition to the Dewalt lineup, no doubt about it. However, it's one of those things where it's kind of like you take a half step but not a full step, and let me explain a little bit more about that. So right here I have this is a Dewalt work table. In a way you can call it like an MFT, if you will, and it's got a push button here to fold up. It's nice and rugged. I can actually stand up on here if I want to. You've got the slots here and you've got the holes. Now my issue with this, these are 3/4 inch holes, so that means that you cannot use 20mm dogs in this top. And you know, being that, now mind you, you know, I'm bringing all this together to try to help you to understand why I would choose, you know, the Festool saw over the Dewalt, because it's not just the saw that I'm comparing. I'm looking at the system here. So right here, if you check this table out, I mean, it's decent enough workbench, but I asked myself this question: why does this table have holes in it? Because at the end of the day, unless you're using a small clamp like this, you can't really use this table with clamps, simply because the holes are too small to use like your standard, like say a Festool style clamp. And Dewalt does not make a clamp that is comparable or compatible to use in this format. So this is the closest Dewalt has to the Festool clamp. Now if we open it up here, and if I wanted to try to, let's say, get this clamp down in here, as you can see, because it's not a 3/4 inch hole, I can't get it through. Now I can put it through here, and I could use the clamp in these 4 slotted holes. But the rest of these holes, I asked myself, well, what are they there for? Are they for, you know, sifting of dust? Because otherwise what I have to do is, as you can see here, this is what I'd have to do. I have this bigger Dewalt clamp. I had to push this button here to take the top off, and then I'll take the actual clamp, and I could either run it from the top or the bottom. And first and foremost, as you can see, it will not fit in these holes. So the only place I can use it is through these slots. So let me get it set up. Now in that slot, I can clamp something down here, which, you know, that's somewhat useful. But as you can see, I'm limited. I can't clamp anything really to the edge. You can see the makeup of the edge of the table. Looks like there may be some 3/4 inch dog holes on the edge there as well. But unless you're using a clamp of this size with the heads that remove, you really can't get anything in these holes to actually do anything functional with them. So I'm not quite sure what the dog holes are for on this table. And obviously you see there's no kind of T-track on the edges, or no way to fasten T-track without actually drilling into this top to do it. Now, by contrast, you see the Festool MFT, which you can buy it without the hardware that you see here or with it, but we have a guide rail here to make cuts with. We have a fence. We have 20mm dog holes here, which we can use 20mm dogs in, and all kinds of accessories that work with the MFT. We have a T-track along all 4 sides of the actual MFT, which gives a lot of extra usability or functionality, if you will. You've got a protractor functionality here built in to the device, and then you can also link more than one MFT together, which provides even more functionality. You can also buy secondary tables to attach to the MFT. And if you take a look here, the MFT here is pretty much on the same plane as this Festool Capex stand. And then if you buy any of the other accessories, whether it be their mobile workstation, or if you buy their STM 1800, I think, which is a ripping station, all of those things are going to be on the same plane. And at least for the STM ripping station, that is something that you would want to use your track saw with. That is something that you would probably use your 118-inch rail with. And whereas with the Dewalt, you know, yeah, you can buy a bunch of these tables. Now, mind you, I got this table on sale for 59 bucks. And this Festool MFT is $700 or $800, I think now. So, you know, the price comparison is nowhere near the same. However, it just, you know, when you make kind of like a stagnant product like this quote MFT type table, it has some basic functionality. You know, I think that this table would be better off if it just had a smooth top, because if you throw screws or bolts on here, they're just going to roll and fall off through these holes. And for the most part, it's very limited as far as clamping your work. And obviously there's no way to connect your guide rail to the table. There's no way to kind of bind these together to give you a bigger surface. You would just basically be butting them up, which is doable, but it's just a less elegant type of design. And then you also look here, as I said, you got the MFT table here, which is actually going to be on the same plane as this miter station. This table here, right, as far as in the system, is not on the same plane as this miter saw. And if I bring out my FLEXVOLT table saw, the table saw is not on the same plane as this or this table. So what you see is a lot of disjointed products that if someone would have been over all of these different projects when they're being produced, they could have thought about, hey, let's actually take this table and have it to where it's on the same plane with this miter saw station, whether that be you drop the miter saw station or raise the table, and the same thing with the table saw, so that the table saw could be an outfeed, or the miter station could be these could be extra wings for the miter saw station. You know, all these different things could have been, you know, thought out in the system, but instead, you know, comparing the Dewalt to the actual Festool, it just seems to be more of a disjointed product. It's not a bad product. It's just a product where you have to do a lot of working and tweaking to get things to work together. And being that, you know, I work a 40-hour-a-week job, I would much rather have a solution like this that's sleek and works together, or like this right here, where it's essentially plug and play. All I need to do is grab my track saw and my track. I can put down my rail, and I can set my stop to get repeatable cuts and get going. And even if I want to extend this out to cut larger items or longer items, I can attach an external table to this side or to the other side of the actual table. So I think that kind of gives a little bit of information as to why I would choose the Dewalt. I mean, choose the Festool over the Dewalt. It's not that the Dewalt is bad. I just feel like you're going to do a whole lot more tinkering in the Dewalt platform. And this is the same. It's not just Dewalt, but it's going to be the same for Milwaukee, Makita, all of them. You're going to be doing a whole lot more tweaking to have things work seamlessly and synergistically together. You're going to be building a whole lot of personal customizable things. And unless you're totally into like metal fabrication, where you can come and design something where you got steel tube and steel pipe and, you know, welding and all of that, and building in functionality where, you know, things can fit seamlessly, and you have actual extensions within, you know, extrusion. Unless you have the capacity to build that stuff in, then you're looking at a huge, you know, wood type of apparatus that, you know, may be very functional, may be very stable, but may not give you all the results that you're actually looking for. Like, I really like my my home built MFT, and it serves a great purpose. But, you know, when I think about, you know, some things that I've learned about this table, and I actually will do a little video going over that, but I just think that you know, for a shop where you need to break things down, meaning, you know, they need to not be up and running all the time because you don't have a dedicated wood shop, then I think that maybe moving with the Festool system may be a little bit better for you, even though it's more pricey, versus, you know, running with the Dewalt, where you have to basically integrate a whole lot of other things. Now, you know, granted, you could get the Dewalt, as I said, and you can run that with this MFT, but then, you know, I would ask, then, you know, you're gonna buy an $800 table to run with, you know, your Dewalt saw. It seems to me that, you know, maybe you should just go ahead and get this one, where everything kind of goes together and is covered under the same umbrella. That's just me. Maybe that's being kind of snobbish, not trying to be, but, you know, maybe it is. Now, I did want to touch on the fact that, oh, and this is another example of what I mean. So the Dewalt comes in a T-stack box, which is good. So that means you have, you know, good storage for it. You could put batteries and such in there, very similar to the Festool. However, the problem is, you know, Dewalt has kind of run away from the whole T-stack design. They've moved into the tough system, which is not compatible, or not directly compatible with the old T-stack. So basically, this is like the only tool, you know, this vacuum, and then I think this saw here is the only one. So they didn't re-release this in a tough box, right? They didn't re-release this vacuum in a tough box, and I think that's where, you know, a lot of other companies kind of go, you know, wrong, where, you know, a company like BMW will refine their car over and over again, whereas GM, you know, this is like a refined automobile, and whereas GM, you know, using an analogy, will reinvent the car every 2 or 3 years, and they have totally new problems, because instead of sticking with one design and refining it and building on it and making it better, i.e. like this, you know, very similar design as even the big vacuum. They didn't come out with some crazy unique shape. They're pretty much the same. They're still using the T-stacks, even when they use the older T-stacks with the little tabs that are more like this this Makita here. It's still compatible even with the older and in the T-lock. So, you know, I think if these companies would actually put a little bit more thought into what they're building and making, and as you see, they put a table saw, Festool put a table saw in the actual, you know, in a sustainer, so that it links up with this. So as a whole, I'm going to say that I personally would go with the Festool. As far as power and stuff, you know, I've heard many different things. I have not heard as of yet of anybody having trouble with this saw as far as it burning out. I have heard that people say that it maybe doesn't give the greatest, smoothest cut. However, you know, I think that's debatable, because you can change the blade on this. You could put, you don't know what kind of blade that person was using, if they were using, you know, a blade that was applicable to the material. So I don't think that that's, you know, just someone's opinion is actually a great way to make that determination. You could get this and you can run a Festool blade if you so chose to, and you know, maybe you'll get a better cut quality. Or if you upgrade this blade and get something like more of a finer finish blade, or use a proper ripping blade when you're ripping, then you may get a better quality cut out of this particular saw. I've had no power issues with this. It does have a proprietary dust port, which does hold on well, so I do like that. The other end to that proprietary dust port looks like this, and it actually twist locks to lock onto the device, so I do like that. Overall, I would just say this was a saw that, you know, it in some aspects is following the spirit of the Festool, which was its predecessor. It did innovate where it has a different type of plunging mechanism. It also has its own proprietary dust collection port. It does have the capacity with the vacuum and the little radio frequency dial here, you know, button to actually remote start the dust extraction, which is a leg up over the Milwaukee, which is newer than this saw and does not have any form of Bluetooth type of capability. So in that way, and another benefit of this is it runs on one battery. The Festool, you can use one battery, however, it's at half power. But if you want full power out of this thing, you need to run the 2 batteries. This one has an actual riving knife, whereas the new TS55 KEB has a feature called kickback, where basically when the saw loses contact with the rail, it automatically shuts the motor off. So if you talk about safety features, this one has a little bit more advanced technology. Now, some people would prefer a riving knife, right? If you talk about, like, if you compare it to the Makita doesn't even have a riving knife. So you're gonna have a thicker curved blade on this saw, thinner curved blade on this one. What else can I touch on? I mean, I think that's pretty much everything that I can say in regards to the saw. If there's anything that I may have forgotten, I'm sure somebody will remind me. But overall, today, I would say, if in the past they had stuff like this benchdogs.co.uk and the parallel guides in the past, there is a high chance that I would have went ahead and stuck with the Dewalt, because I do have, you know, rails. You know, I would have probably just dealt with adding an extra rail to the 102 to get my extension to make it overlap on a sheet of 4 foot by 8 foot of plywood or sheet stock. I probably would have, you know, now there's a slight chance that I would have bought an MFT and used it with the Dewalt, but more than likely I probably would have tried to build my own type of MFT table, or even went with the dashboard, because you do have companies like Dashboard that make a rail hinge that you can put on your own MFT. And you also have benchdogs.co.uk, like right here, right there in the center. I don't know if you can see it, but basically it has a Dewalt setting, so you can actually hook a guide rail to one of these. So if you want to build your own MFT, right, if you want to save a little bit of money on the saw, get the Dewalt, have one battery, use it with all your drills and all your other tools. Pick up your benchdogs.co.uk rail square, your benchdogs.co.uk parallel guides, and then your benchdogs.co.uk rail hinge, or your dashboard rail hinge. Then you could basically recreate this setup, because you can also get a benchdogs.co.uk fence, and you can use other devices and mechanisms to get this protractor functionality. So, you know, where there's a will, there's a way. If you wanted to run all Dewalt, it would require just a little bit more creativity, but you could make it happen. And you know, would it be a lot cheaper? There's a possibility. I mean, I have this device called the Parf Guide system, which would give me the ability to drill out these holes so I could make an MFT over and over again if I needed to. So if you bought that, if you bought, you know, the rail hinge here, because this rail hinge, I'm thinking the set it's between $250-$300 for this, right? Whereas this whole table right here is $800. And then you know, if you want to do the aluminum extrusions, I'm sure you can find, you know, some cheaper things like that. But then, you know, as I say, when you get down, you see You've got this tube steeling for the legs. This table only weighs about 60 some pounds or whatever. And you've got this cast iron or aluminum on the side. You know, maybe you can make this on your own, or maybe you would just go with a simple wood design like my MFT. So it's a doable thing if you wanted to. Anyways, guys, thank you for taking time to watch the video, and I will see you in my next one. Take care.